She opened her eyes slowly. The world around her was dark, cold, and silent. Frost covered the metal walls, and her breath turned to mist in the air. Her body shivered, weak and stiff. She tried to move, but pain rushed through her like fire. She was not dead, but she was not far from it. The lights in the room were flickering. She could see broken wires hanging from the ceiling. The floor was covered in ice. Everything was frozen. Her cell, a small glass box, looked like it had been closed for a long time. She could barely remember who she was, but she knew this. She had been left here to die. A name faint and distant echoed in her mind. Alara. That was her name, wasn't it? She touched her chest and felt the thin fabric of the medical gown. No armor, no tools, no weapons, just a thin cloth and freezing air. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know who had brought her here. But she knew one thing. This place was not made to keep her safe. It was made to forget her. The power systems in the station were dying. Red lights blinked on the walls, low oxygen, low energy, life support failing. She looked out through the glass window. Beyond it was the blackness of space and a dead planet below. Nothing moved, no ships, no life, no rescue. Just silence. Her fingers pressed against the window. Her skin burned from the cold. Her heart felt the same cold and alone. Tears came. But they froze before they could fall. She whispered to herself, "Is this how I die?" Time passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. Her body grew weaker, her eyelids heavy. She closed her eyes again, and for a moment she gave up. But then a soft rumble. The station shook, just slightly. Her eyes opened again. Lights blinked. Outside the station, a shadow moved across the window. A ship. Her heart jumped. Was it the ones who abandoned her? Or someone new? She didn't know, but it didn't matter. It was life. It was hope. She tried to sit up, but her body failed her. Still. She forced her hand to press the emergency light. A red flare blinked on her cell wall, a signal inside. The small human ship, the pilot leaned forward. He was a scavenger. Flying alone, his name was Jack. He was searching for spare parts, not people. His scanners picked up a weak life signal, strange and fading. He frowned. No one supposed to be out here, he said. Still, something in him told him to check. He docked his ship with the station and stepped into the freezing halls. His breath turned white as he moved through the corridors. The place was falling apart. He followed the signal until he reached a sealed door. It opened with a sharp hiss. And inside, he saw her. She was lying on the floor of the cell. Unmoving, frost covered her hair and her lips were blue. She looked not human, but not a monster either. Jack stood still. He had seen strange things in space, aliens, machines, ghosts. But this was different. She opened her eyes again, just a little. She saw him, a human. Covered in warm clothes, carrying a light. She didn't know who he was, but something inside her, some small, lost part, felt warmth. Jack stared at her. His hand touched his weapon, just in case, but he didn't draw it. He looked at her eyes. Filled with pain and fear, she reached out a hand, weak and shaking. Then her arm fell, and she went unconscious. He stood there for a moment, thinking he could turn around and leave. Nobody would ever know, but he didn't. He stepped into the cell, lifted her carefully. Her skin was cold as ice. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her back to his ship, laid her on the medical bed, wrapped her in heat blankets. Connected her to oxygen. "Don't die," he said softly. "I didn't come here to bury someone," as the engines hummed and the ship pulled away from the dying station. Jack sat by her side, watching her chest rise and fall slowly. "She's not human," he whispered, "but she's alive, and somewhere." Deep in the cold silence of space, a secret had awakened. Asterisk warmth. It was the first thing she felt. Soft, strange, alive. After endless cold, It felt like a dream. Her eyes blinked slowly, weak and heavy. There was light now, sharp and artificial like before. But warm and golden, she was no longer inside the freezing cell. She tried to move, but her body didn't listen. Soft cloth covered her now, and something beeped near her ear. She turned her head slightly and saw wires. Screens, machines clean and working. Someone had saved her. Alara blinked again. And a blurry shape came into view. A man sat near her, arms crossed, watching her closely. He had rough features, tired eyes, and messy hair, but his expression was calm. Not angry, not afraid, just curious. "You're awake," he said softly. His voice was deep, human, not like the cold clinical voices from before. She opened her mouth, but no words came, only a broken whisper. "Where?" "You're on my ship," he answered. "I pulled you out of that station. You were half frozen." He stood up and poured something warm into a metal cup. "Here," he said, holding it out. "Soup." She looked at the cup, then at him, unsure. He noticed her fear and backed away slowly. "I didn't drug it or anything," he added, trying to smile. "Just soup." She reached out slowly, fingers trembling, and took the cup. The warmth of the metal made her eyes water. She brought it to her lips and drank. It tasted like salt and warmth and life. It made her chest hurt, but in a good way. Jack leaned back and watched her. "I'm Jack," he said, "captain of the Raven, small ship, big heart." Alara looked up at him, confused. "Raven? Ship?" she asked, voice soft and broken. "Yeah," he nodded. "That's where we are." He tapped his foot on the metal floor. "You were locked in that station, alone. I don't know who put you there or why, but you were dying, so I brought you out." She looked down at her hands. Scars ran across her arms' lines and symbols burned into her skin. Some were marks of experiments. Others were memories. She closed her eyes. "I was made," she whispered. Jack tilted his head. "Made?" "In a lab," she said slowly. "They called me Subject Zero. They built me to be useful when I failed. They left me." Jack's jaw tightened. He had seen dark things in space pirates. Slaver's AI gone wrong, but this felt worse. She was alone, cold, and left behind like broken trash. "You're not a subject anymore," he said, voice firm. "You're a person." Alara looked up, confused. "I'm a what?" He nodded. "You have a name, right?" She hesitated, then said, "Ilara." "That's all I remember." "Well, Ilara," he said, sitting down again. "You're safe now." She looked around the ship, small, a bit messy. Full of strange human things, photos, jackets, empty, coffee cups, but it felt alive. Not like the station, not like the lab. This place breathed. "Why did you help me?" she asked, eyes searching his face. He shrugged. "I saw you in that cell," he said, and something in me just said, "No, no one should be left to die like that." Ilara stared at him. Most creatures in the galaxy would have left her, taken parts from her body, sold her as scrap. But this human? "Didn't you are?" "Strange," she said quietly. Jack laughed. "Yeah, I've heard that before." Suddenly, a light blinked red on the control panel. Jack stood up, walking to the screen. His fingers moved fast, tapping buttons, his smile. "Faded? What is it?" Ilara asked, trying to sit up. "Something followed us," Jack said. Eyes narrowed. A signal. Faint, but close. Her face turned pale. "They found me," she whispered. Her voice shook. Not from cold, but from fear. Jack turned toward her. "Who?" "The ones who made me," she said. "They don't want me alive if I escape. Their secrets are exposed." Jack walked over and grabbed a small device from his belt. "Then we're not letting them catch you," he said. He knelt beside her and looked into her eyes. "You're not alone anymore." She looked at him, heart racing, in that moment. She felt something she had never known. Not data, not commands, not orders, but care. He stood up and walked to the pilot's seat. "We need to move," he said, fast. The engines roared to life, and the ship turned into the dark, away from the dead planet, away from the prison, and into the stars. Ilara closed her eyes, warmth wrapped around her. Not from the heater, not from the blanket, but from something deeper. Something human. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. The ship floated quietly through the stars. Outside the window, space stretched wide and endless. Dark, deep, and full of secrets. Inside, the hum of the engine was soft and steady. It sounded like breathing calm, alive, peaceful. Ilara sat near the window, her hands wrapped around a warm cup. Her skin had regained color, but her eyes still held shadows. She watched the stars as if they were old friends. Or maybe old enemies. Jack walked in from the control room. Holding a folded blanket. "You should rest," he said. "You're still healing. I don't sleep much." She replied, "Not anymore." He placed the blanket on the chair beside her, then sat across from her, resting his elbows on the table. His eyes were tired, but curious. "Tell me something," he said. "Why were they afraid of you?" Ilara looked down at her hands. Her fingers trembled just a little. She didn't speak right away. Then, softly, she said, "Because they made me wrong." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Wrong? How?" "They built me to obey," she said, "to follow orders no matter what, but something inside me didn't follow." She touched her temple gently. "I started asking questions. Why do we hurt the weak? Why do we lie? Why do we call it safety when it feels like pain?" Jack leaned back slowly, and they didn't like that. She nodded. "They said I was broken, so they locked me away. Better to erase a mistake than admit they made one." Jack was silent for a moment, then he said, "Sounds to me like you weren't broken, you were waking up." Ilara looked at him. There was no fear in his eyes, just understanding. "You're not afraid of me," she whispered, surprised. He shook his head. "I've met people who look human, but are monsters, and I've met things that don't look human at all, but have a heart. Looks don't mean much out here." She smiled, just a little, a soft, careful smile. It was the first real one since she woke up. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me." Jack stood up and walked to the control panel. "We've got some distance now," he said. "Whoever was tracking us must have lost our trail. But we can't stay in one place for too long." Ilara stood too, walking over slowly. Her body still felt heavy, but stronger each day. She pointed at the screen. "This star path here," she said, "takes us near an old mining moon. Abandoned, but there's shelter. Maybe supplies." Jack glanced at her, surprised. "You know the charts." "I was trained in everything," she said quietly. "They wanted me to be useful." He nodded and changed course. The stars shifted on the screen as the ship turned. Outside, the black sea of space moved slowly past. As hours passed, they worked. Side by side, she helped fix wires, sort supplies, read old logs. He cooked simple meals, taught her how to play chess. They were two strangers, one human, one not, but something gentle grew between them. Ilara found herself laughing once, just once. It startled her. She had forgotten what laughter felt like. Later that night, Jack stared at an old photo in his hand. 3 people in the picture, him and 2 others. A younger version of him smiled at the center. Ilara saw the photo and tilted her head. "Your family?" she asked. He shook his head. "My crew," he said. "We ran salvage runs across the rim until one day we answered a fake distress signal. Ambush." He looked away. "I made it out. They didn't." Ilara touched the edge of the photo gently. "I'm sorry," she said. I know what it feels like to be the only one left, Jack placed the photo back in the drawer and smiled sadly. I guess we're both ghosts of something. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. The engine gave a low growl like a warning. Jack stood up fast, hands moving across the panel. Elara joined him, scanning the systems. What is it? I don't know, he said. No damage, no signal. But something's off. A small red dot appeared on the radar. It wasn't moving, just floating in space behind them. Not a ship, not debris, just watching. Elara's breath caught. That's not random, she said. That's a trace. Probe. They send it when they want to stay quiet, but still close. Jack cursed under his breath. We'll have to lose it manually. No way. No tricks, just old-fashioned flying. He took the pilot's seat. Elara sat beside him. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no wall between them. Only truth. Whatever comes, she said. I won't run alone this time, Jack gave her a half smile. Good, he said, because I'm not letting you go either. The ship roared to life and shot through the stars. Behind them, the small red dot blinked once, then followed. The hunt had begun again, but this time, Elara was not cold. Not alone, and not afraid. The ship landed gently on a forgotten moon. Its surface was pale gray, covered in dust and silence. The stars above were clear and endless. No cities, no towers, no satellites, just rock, snow, and the sound of the wind. Jack stepped out first. Boots pressing into the soft ground. The air was thin but breathable. The scanners had confirmed it. He looked around at the jagged cliffs and frozen hills. This place is dead, he said. But it'll hide us for now. Elara followed him down the ramp. Her boots lighter, her steps careful. She turned her face to the cold breeze. It didn't hurt like before. This cold was real, not the death cold of a prison. She welcomed it. They found an old mining shelter built into the rocks. Abandoned long ago, but still standing. Inside were rusted walls, cracked screens, and faded symbols in a language long forgotten. Jack fixed the power system with some effort. The lights flickered on, dim and yellow. Not perfect, but enough. Elara walked through the empty halls slowly. She touched a wall with her fingers. Memories flashed not from her own life, but from deep within. She didn't understand them. Pain, metal, voices shouting, tests, numbers, wires in her skin. Then a scream, not hers, but close. She pulled her hand away quickly. Jack noticed. You all right? He asked. She nodded, but her face was pale. This place has echoes, she said. They set up a small camp in the main room. Jack heated water for tea while Elara scanned the area with an old terminal. I found an old data core, she said. Might have maps, logs, something useful. Jack leaned back in the chair, sipping slowly. He watched her as she worked, focused, quiet, sharp. There was a strength in her now. Not just survival, it was purpose. He broke the silence. You were more than just a lab project, weren't you? She looked at him, eyes steady. I was designed to observe and adapt, she said. But I started feeling, thinking. Dreaming. Jack raised an eyebrow. Dreams, huh? She nodded. I dreamed of warmth, she said. Of hands that didn't hurt. Of places like this quiet. Simple. Jack smiled faintly. Well, not many people dream of old mining. Bases. Elara smiled too. Just a little. It was a small moment, but real, and it meant something. Later that night, while Jack rested, Elara stepped outside. The wind had grown colder. She walked across the moon's surface, slowly, her mind full of noise voices from the past. Whispers from the stars. She stood at the edge of a cliff, and closed her eyes. Then she raised one hand. Slowly, a soft glow began to form in her palm. Golden, warm, pulsing like a heartbeat. The snow around her began to melt in a small circle. Back inside, Jack woke up suddenly. Something felt wrong. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. He saw her standing at the cliff, her body glowing softly in the dark. "Elara," he called. She turned to him, surprised, the light fading from her hand. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said. Jack walked closer, his eyes calm, but searching. "You said they made you to observe," he said. "But they made more than that." She looked away. "They called it phase control," she whispered. "I could bend energy, shape it, move it through matter, but it scared them." Jack stepped beside her. "It doesn't scare me," he said. She turned to face him fully. "Then you're the first." He took a slow breath. "You think they're still chasing you because of that?" "They want control," she said, "and I am something they can't control anymore." Jack looked out across the frozen valley. "Then we better stay ahead of them," he said. "We fight if we have to." Elara tilted her head. "Curious? Why?" "Because you deserve to live," he said. "Not locked in a cage, not hunted like an animal. You deserve to choose your path." Her eyes softened. "No one ever said that to me." He smiled slightly. "Then it's about time someone did." Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. A faint beep came from Jack's wrist console. He looked down. Motion detection. "Something's approaching," he said quickly. Elara's glow vanished in an instant. Back to silence, back to shadow. They ran into the shelter, sealing the door behind them. On the screen, a dot moved through the dusted drone. Small and fast. It didn't shoot, didn't scan it, simply hovered. Watching, Jack gritted his teeth. "It's another trace drone." Elara stared at it through the camera feed. "They're not attacking," she said, "because they want to see what I do." "Test you," Jack said. She nodded slowly. "Yes." They sat together in the dark room, watching the screen outside. The stars watched back. Inside, two souls sat close. No longer strangers. They were hunted, yes, but they were not broken. Not anymore. The drone outside stayed still. Its red eye blinked softly. Watching the shelter without a sound, inside, Elara and Jack stood in silence. Both knew what it meant. "They're close," Elara said, her voice calm but firm. Jack checked his pistol. Then his backup battery pack. They waited to be sure. He said, "Now they'll come fast." Elara turned to the main screen, pulling up maps and systems. "We need to leave now," she said, "before they drop soldiers." Jack nodded, but before he could move, a sharp sound echoed across the valley. A high-pitched, whine-like metal tearing space. "Too late," Jack said, eyes narrowing. A ship descended from the sky above the cliffs, sleek, black, and cold. Like a blade, its sides opened, and armored figures dropped to the ground in silence. 6 of them, no words, no warning, only weapons. Jack grabbed his pack and threw a small rifle to Elara. "Can you shoot?" She looked at the weapon, then slowly shook her head. "I was never taught to kill," she said, "but I can protect." He didn't have time to ask what she meant. The shelter doors shook loud bangs from outside, reinforced steel. Jack said, "But it won't last." Elara stood in the center of the room. She closed her eyes and placed both hands on the floor. The air around her grew warmer. Dust lifted, wires sparked, light bent. "Stand back," she whispered. Jack moved. Just in time, a pulse of golden energy exploded outward from her hands. The lights flickered, and every panel in the room glowed for a moment. The metal walls shook but did not fall. The door sealed tighter outside. One of the soldiers stepped forward. He raised his plasma cutter, but before he could touch the door, something struck him. A wave, silent, invisible, but powerful. He flew backward and hit the rocks. Hard. The others paused, unsure. Inside, Elara opened her eyes again, glowing gold. "I can hold them," she said. "But not for long." Jack grabbed her hand. "Then we run now." They moved fast through the rear tunnels. Old mining paths led under the hills and toward the landing zone. Behind them, the shelter door cracked with a loud metallic snap. The soldiers were breaking in. Ilara ran beside Jack, her breath sharp, her body glowing faintly. The tunnels were narrow, the path rough. Old crates, broken rails, and frozen pipes blocked the way. "I've got an idea," Jack said, sliding to a stop. He opened a dusty side panel and pulled out a rusted battery core. He strapped it to a loose pipe and set a timer. "Boom, in 20 seconds, he said. We closed the tunnel behind us. They ran again, faster now. The sound of heavy boots echoed behind them, closer and closer. A bright light flashed behind them, followed by a loud boom. The tunnel shook, rocks fell. The path collapsed, dust filled the air, but Jack and Ilara had made it through. They reached the open snowfield near the landing zone. Jack tapped his wrist pad. The Raven responded, lifting slightly into the air and unlocking its ramp. They dashed across the field. A second ship was descending in the distance, the enemies. "Back up," Jack cursed under his breath. "Too many," he said. "They want you at all costs." Ilara stopped and turned. Her eyes were glowing brighter now. She raised both hands toward the second ship. At first, nothing happened. Then the snow around her rose into the air, spinning, glowing, forming patterns. "Get on the ship," she said to Jack. "What?" "No, I'm not leaving you out here. Trust me," she said, her voice calm and powerful. "I'll be right behind you." He hesitated, then ran up the ramp, inside. He powered up weapons and opened the top hatch. Ilara stood in the snow, like a flame in the dark. She pushed her hands forward slowly. The second ship began to shake. Its engines flickered. Its landing gear failed. Inside the cockpit, the enemy pilot screamed as systems failed. Then boom. The ship slammed into the side of a cliff and exploded in fire and smoke. Ilara turned and ran toward the Raven. Jack reached out and pulled her inside as the ramp closed. "You're crazy," he said, panting. "But I'm glad." She smiled weakly, her glow fading. "I didn't know I could do that," she whispered. Jack set the controls to launch. "We'll figure it out later," he said. "Right now, we fly." The Raven lifted off just as more enemy signals appeared on the radar. But it didn't stop. The engines roared as the ship soared up into the stars, leaving fire, snow, and enemies behind. Ilara leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Jack looked at her, still glowing slightly. Still powerful, but tired. "You're not just made," he said softly. "You're becoming something new." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Maybe I'm becoming." Human asterisk stars moved past the window like soft rivers of light. The Raven floated through deep space, quiet and calm, but inside the ship, silence felt heavier than usual. Jack sat alone in the cockpit, staring at a blinking light on the control panel. Behind him, Ilara walked in slowly, her steps light but uncertain. Her body still carried the ache of battle, but her eyes were focused. She had questions, and she was done waiting. "You're hiding something," she said gently. Jack didn't turn around. His fingers tapped slowly on the console. "I'm not hiding," he said. "I was just delaying." Ilara stood beside him now, watching the screen. It showed a set of coordinates glowing softly in green. Not random, not leftover, they were set on purpose. "What is this place?" she asked. Jack leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "It's a station," he said. "Old, hidden, buried under the surface of an asteroid field. I wasn't just flying for scrap when I found you. I was looking for this." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "What's there?" "Data," he said. "Stolen files, test logs, secrets that were never meant to be seen. I believe it's connected to the lab that made you." Ilara's breath caught. "You knew?" Jack finally turned to face her. "I didn't know about you, not at first. he said. I just knew something was wrong with the stories I kept hearing. People disappearing, silent stations, strange signals. I followed the trail, and it led to that research group. He paused, eyes heavy with guilt. I wanted to expose them, he said. Prove that humanity didn't support what they were doing. But I wasn't fast enough. Elara sat down across from him. Her voice quiet. You lost people because of it, didn't you? Jack nodded slowly. My crew believed in the mission, he said. We got too close to the truth. They silenced them. I ran. For a moment. Neither of them spoke. Only the low hum of the ship filled the air. Elara looked at the blinking coordinates again. If we go there, she said. They'll know. They'll be waiting. Jack nodded. They'll try to stop us, he said. But we'll also have a chance to find the full truth, not just for you, but for others like you. Elara leaned back in the seat, her thoughts spinning. She had spent most of her life running from labs, from pain, from herself. But now someone was asking her to face it, not alone, but together. I don't want to live in fear, she said, her voice steady, but I don't want to be used either. You won't be. Jack said, not by me. She looked into his eyes. They were tired, yes, but full of fire. The kind of fire that didn't come from revenge, but from purpose. You saw more than just data, didn't you? She asked. You saw them others like me? Jack nodded. Files said there were 13 subjects. He said, you're the only one who escaped the system, but I don't think you're the only one alive. Lara's hand curled into a fist. They built us like machines, but we were alive. They just didn't want us to be human. She stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the stars looked so still, but she knew how much pain floated in the dark between them. You don't have to do this, she said, without turning. You could leave me at some port and walk away. Jack stood too. I could, he said. But I won't. Elara turned back. Why? He gave her a half smile. Because I believe in second chances, he said. And maybe. I believe in you, for a long time. She said nothing. Then she walked back to the console and pressed the green light. Then let's go find the truth, she said, together. Jack nodded and started the sequence. The ship turned slowly, changing course. The new destination flashed across the screen and asteroid field far from any trade route, far from any help in the storage bay. Jack checked their weapons and gear. He handed Elara a small device, a shield belt. Old but strong. She strapped it on with silent focus. Jack, she said, if I lose control out there. You won't, he said without hesitation. But if I do, you won't, he repeated. Because now, you're not alone. They stood side by side as the Raven entered the outer edge of the asteroid field. Sky outside was filled with spinning rocks, distant flashes, and a cold silence that made even time seem slow. In the center of it all, the hidden station waited, covered in ice. Shadows and secrets, waiting to be opened, waiting to choose who lives and who doesn't. And for the first time, Elara wasn't afraid of being seen, because she had already chosen her side. The asteroid field swallowed the Raven like a mouth of stone. Huge rocks drifted silently, brushing past the ship like sleeping giants. Inside the cockpit, Jack focused on the controls while Elara studied the radar in the center of the storm. The hidden station waited, dark, cold, and full of secrets. There, Elara pointed. Behind that fractured ridge, Jack slowed the ship, guiding it carefully between the spinning rocks. As they passed the final ridge, the structure came into view, a gray dome, half buried in asteroid dust, surrounded by broken satellites. No lights, no signals, just silence. That's the place, Jack said. Looks like no one's been here for years. They're here. Elara said, her voice low. I can feel it. They landed on a flat platform outside the station. Both stepped out, wearing shield belts. Weapons ready, eyes sharp. The air was dry and thin, But breathable, the doors of the station stood. Tall in front of the mold, sealed, but not locked. Ilara placed her hand on the panel. A soft glow passed from her skin to the surface. With a groan, the doors opened inward. Revealing darkness, inside, lights flickered slowly to life. They walked through long halls lined with glass, chambers, empty. Cold and marked with numbers, Jack glanced at them and stopped. Subject 6, he read. Subject 9. He turned to Ilara. These were your brothers and sisters, she nodded slowly. They never made it out. Deeper inside, the station changed. Screens blinked to life, metal arms moved slightly, and a soft voice echoed through the air. Welcome back, Subject 0. Ilara froze. She knew that voice. It belonged to Dr. Valtha, one who called her a tool, not a child. I see you've brought company, the voice continued. A human. Curious, Jack aimed his rifle at the speakers. I've got a few questions, he said. And you're going to answer all of them. You are in no position to demand anything, the voice said coldly. This facility has over 200 automated defenses you won't leave alive. Ilara stepped forward. Then why haven't you killed us yet? She asked. Silence. Then, the voice replied. Because I want to see what you've become. A door slid open ahead, leading to a wide chamber. In the center stood a tall machine, half living, half metal, connected to thick wires. Inside it, something pulse-glowing faintly. Ilara stepped closer, her eyes wide. It's a control core, she whispered. They didn't just train us, they stored us. Jack stared at it, confused. What do you mean? Ate copied. Our minds, she said, voice shaking. If one of us disobeyed, they could start over. No freedom. No soul. Just repeat. Jack clenched his fists. And what now? I break it, she said, but not with fire. She stepped toward the core, ignoring the alarms and warnings flashing around her. Inside, she saw flashes' faces, pain, memories that weren't hers. But they felt real. She saw Subject 3 cry in the dark. She saw Subject 11 reach for a hand that never came. And she saw herself, not just as a weapon, but as a child, alone, afraid. Waiting for someone to care, tears slipped down her cheeks. Not from weakness, but from knowing she wasn't alone in her pain. She placed both hands on the core and whispered, You were never machines. A golden pulse exploded from her chest. The lights dimmed, then surged. The core cracked. The memories inside broke free. In the control room, systems failed one by one. The AI screamed, You don't understand what you're destroying. But Ilara didn't stop. She glowed brighter and brighter. Jack stepped back, watching her in awe. The core collapsed inward. The chamber shook. Ilara dropped to her knees. Exhausted but alive. It's over, she said. They're free. Jack rushed to her side, holding her gently. You did it, he said. You stopped them. Sirens began to wail. The station was breaking apart unstable without its power core. They ran through the halls, dodging falling debris and sparks. Back to the ship, back to the stars. The Raven launched just as the dome behind them collapsed. The hidden lab was gone. The prison of memory, buried forever. Inside the ship, Ilara sat by the window, quiet and tired. Jack brought her a blanket, placing it over her shoulders. You all right? He asked. She nodded slowly, for the first time. I think I am. They stared out into the stars. The darkness no longer felt so cold. Jack broke the silence. So, what now? Ilara looked at him and smiled softly. Now, we find the others. He raised an eyebrow. You think they're out there? She nodded. I know they are. Jack leaned back. Well, he said, let's go change the stars, and together. With hearts stronger than steel and warmer than fire, they flew forward, tint. The unknown, not as weapons, not as ghosts, but as something rare and powerful, human.